Sir, if I could, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to shift to Russia. I think it's important that we acknowledge that the presence of Russia in the Arctic is historically reflective of their territory, their Arctic territory that they hold. I believe there's along the line of 4 million residents, human beings living in the Arctic area, the designated area, and over half of those are citizens of Russia. Their land mass, I believe they have over 1,500 miles of coastline, or I don't exactly recall, but it's a lot. Like much more, maybe 15,000 miles of coastline. So when you consider the entire weave of coast, the point is that Russia has a right to presence in the Arctic, as opposed to China. And I think it's important, and I would like you all to address this. I think it's important that the United States work with Russia regarding securing trade routes and navigation routes that are emerging as technology for vessels emerge and as the nature of Arctic ice changes. We do not want Russia to partner with China, which we're beginning to witness, and this is a concern to me. So beginning with Mr. O'Rourke, if you could comment, and then we'll go to Mr. Coffey and Dr. Brimmer.
Yeah, I'll just make 2 quick points. One would be to reinforce what I said earlier, that Russia's sense of being diplomatically isolated from the 7 other Arctic states as a consequence of the war in Ukraine has encouraged Russia to increase its cooperation with China in the Arctic. And that is creating new opportunities for China in the Arctic that are above those that they were already pursuing. The other thing I'll note is that even though the war in Ukraine has disrupted the operations of the Arctic Council and has led to Russia's diplomatic isolation in other ways from the other 7 Arctic states, there are still forms of cooperation that continue even in this situation. For example, the United States and Russia continue to cooperate in the regulation of sea traffic through the Bering Strait, in the performance of the agreement that the 2 countries reached about the regulation of that sea traffic in 2018. So there is some limited degree of cooperation underway between us and Russia, even in this larger situation.
Thank you, Mr. Higgins. As an Arctic power, as an Arctic state, as you alluded to, Russia has every right, and it's Moscow's prerogative, to deploy military forces, construct military bases wherever it so chooses to, as long as it's on the territory internationally recognized as being part of the Russian Federation. Where the concern lies is when you look at what Russia has done in other regions around the world on its periphery, whether it's in the Caucasus, South Caucasus in particular, in Syria, of course, with Ukraine. That's when there's a concern that Russia might try something in the Arctic. In terms of the idea of—
Let me just interject that we concur that Russian military presence is a threat worldwide. We're specifically discussing the Arctic region, and I ask you to stay focused on that because it's a unique international challenge, the Arctic region.
Yes, as long as Russia maintains its military forces inside the borders recognized as being part of the Russian Federation, it's their prerogative to do what they want with them. The concern will become when they decide to use these forces outside of the borders of the Russian Federation. In terms of the notion of cooperating with Russia, I don't think this is, in any meaningful sense, in the Arctic or otherwise, I don't think that this is geopolitically possible right now. And there is a growing relationship between Beijing and Moscow. But Beijing is very much the senior partner and Russia is the junior partner. And I know, Mr. Higgins, you asked me to stay restricted to the Arctic, but often these geopolitical issues are interconnected. And that is why a strong Ukraine will equal a safer and more secure Taiwan. As China's junior partner, anything we do to weaken Russia will indirectly weaken China. And China's watching how we respond to Ukraine because they have their eye on Taiwan, and a stronger Ukraine could perhaps deter China from doing something in Taiwan. And then ultimately, this comes back to the Arctic.
My time has expired. We need